You can go small, you can go micro, because the micro machines are here. The smallest three-wheelers ever, with dramatic detail, precision paintwork, colossal collectability. Famous names like Chevy, Trans Am, Mercedes, Porsche, Jeep, Camaro, Phantom, Jumbo, Mustang, Bulldozer. That's not a bulldozer, that's a bulldozer. There's Lamborghini, Stingray, Dodge, Barracuda, Corvette. Micro machines come in collections of 5. Micro machines come in collections of 5. Micro machines come in collections of 5. Micro machines come in collections of 5.
It's possible I have a bit of a god complex, I'm starting to realise. I really liked micro machines when I was young, which were little toy cars, for those who don't know, but really, really little, like really small toy cars. Micro, you might describe them as. But I didn't just love the cars, they were fine. What I loved were the play sets that recreated a little town. I specifically remember the one that came in what looked like a big van that opened up into a town that seemed to have everything from a sea dock to a racetrack and all that stuff. At least that's how I remembered it, because I used to imagine what life was like in that town. People going about their lives, getting in the car and travelling around. It actually made me feel comforted thinking about that town continuing to live when I wasn't playing with it. I made little signs to change or name certain buildings. It was a magical world to me. This world came to the MegaDrive with Micro Machines in '91 as a pretty simple top-down perspective racing game. With the hardware limitations of the time in 2 dimensions, this was one of 2 options you had for racing games. You either did a from-behind view of a car on a track, you move left and right to avoid obstacles, like in Outrun, or you did a top-down view of a car and had a little more freedom of movement around a track. This one did the latter and fixed the controls and camera so that pressing left on the controller turned the car left from the perspective of the imagined driver, whether the car was moving up, down, left or right on the screen. Those controls were fixed. That was a deal breaker for some people in the same way some could never get away with the character perspective controls, also known as tank controls, in Resident Evil. Personally, it worked for me. I loved it. I spent a lot of time trying to beat all the kid characters in Micro Machines. That was one of the cool aspects of the game, as there were what seemed like a really big number of characters for you to race against, presented as other kids who own Micro Machines toys, and all of them being some kind of interesting stereotype of a school kid. Some of these have aged better than others. And this was all part of the overall theming that didn't pretend the toys were real cars, but instead came up with some fun and imaginative settings for places the kids might be playing with the toys. You start off playing with the boats in the bathtub, for example, with giant bars of soap and rubber ducks to avoid. Then there's 4x4s on the breakfast table, jumping over cereal boxes, and sports cars on the school desk, where pencil sharpeners and erasers will absolutely ruin your day. That stuff sounds pretty obvious now, but it was actually a fresh idea at the time, and it made the game stand out from other racers that aimed for a more real-world setting. It just added a sense of fun and adventure and imagination to it, which actually belied quite a challenging game. Because of the top-down perspective, there was an extent to which you really had to learn the tracks pretty well to stand a chance, especially when you were in the faster vehicles, when you can't entirely rely on your reflexes. By the time you've seen the pool cue in the F1 car, you've already hit it. So you have to know where it is ahead of time and make the adjustments. People tend to dismiss these toy brand tie-ins as just adverts for the product, and certainly I imagine that's a big part of the motivation for making these games, right? Let's be real. But I also think that overlooks an important aspect of the appeal for kids who don't have lots of money to waste buying an entire range of toys. These kind of games allow them to feel like they've got a collection to play with by just getting one thing, the game. The tournament mode even represents this, as you sort of building up your own Micro Machines collection with each race you win, which I thought was pretty cool. The sequels to this game ramped up the difficulty to an insane degree, and that makes them considerably less enjoyable, but this first one is still a cracker if you can handle the fixed controls. By the time the tanks are introduced, it's all gotten a little bit silly, with you all just firebombing each other out of existence. But there is a really nice multiplayer mode here too, which is not just racing each other to see who gets to the finish line first, but scoring points by managing to get a full screen ahead of your opponent. This is different enough from the main challenge because it means you can play tactically. If you think you're going to go off the table, for example, at the next turn, you have to judge whether you think that's going to happen before you reach a screen ahead. And if it's not, you can just bomb ahead and see if you can get the point. Many a friendship will have been ruined by this mode.